Hi, screwing along with Susan. Hey, in this video I'm going to show you how I make my own personal wood clamps instead of buying them at a store, which it's very simple to do. Now here is one that I did buy in a store. It's very large, it's too big for a scroll saw, but I have used it, made out of pine. And I need something much smaller to work on a scroll saw. And you may have seen in some of my other videos using this one. It's about 11 inches long, using very large carriage bolts, which you don't need to have them quite this big, but it worked okay for me. I find for the wood, the best to use is a hardwood. Here is a cherry piece, and here is a walnut piece. It is very important to make sure that it is planed and it is flat on all sides. So you need to start with the proper size of wood. And for the thickness, if you have 1 inch of wood on both sides of your carriage bolts, that's going to give you a nice flat surface to work with to put your piece in between. And it'll be a nice grip. And you really need it about 1 inch thick, because by the time that you drill the holes for the carriage bolts, you want to make sure they're not going to be protruding on either side. So here I have 1 inch by 1 inch. It's already been planed. It's ready to go. I'm going to cut it about 7.5 inches long, so I'll have 7.5 inches on both sides. What you need for this at the hardware store are 6-inch carriage bolts, or if you want 7-inch. It depends on what size you want, but normally if you have 1 inch on either side of wood, that's going to give you plenty of space to hold your small item on the scroll saw. But you can really make it any size that you want. So these are 1/4 inch by 6-inch carriage bolts, threaded all the way through. I just have the nuts that fit them properly on the ends. Now I have used wing nuts before, but I tell you, when you turn them, and if you don't get it just right, it'll hang lower than your piece of wood, and then it will not work for you. So even though it takes a little bit longer to attach these when you're using them to clamp your wood, it's better just to use the regular nuts. And then you need to have washers, and I suggest the washers be at both ends. So you need 4 washers. You can use a hand saw, table saw, scroll saw, or chop saw for this. Okay, I ended up with about 8 inches long just because I had the material. I have laid them flat and secured both sides with blue painter's tape. You could use clear packing tape, because when I drill the holes for the bolts, I want them to be equal on both sides of the wood, so that when you thread the carriage bolt through, they remain flat on the bottom. It's going to be drawing where the carriage bolts are going to be placed. Now it's not as crucial for the holes that you drill be the same distance from the top or the bottom. It is more crucial to make sure it's at a 90-degree angle when it goes through, so the bottom lays flat. I tell you, if you do not own a drill press, this is one of the best investments that I have made. You can use a hand drill and do a 90-degree, but this really ensures that you're going to get a lot better 90-degree angle on this. And here I am using one of my wood clamps to hold this together, because it's only 1 inch thick, and I wanted a little bit more support so that it will not shift on me when I'm doing my cutting. Use a drill bit one size larger than your bolts, so that it's not difficult to slide in. It's a lot easier to adjust them if it's a larger size. Make sure you have a piece of wood underneath so that you won't have tear out on your piece. Before you take the tape off, test to make sure your bolt will slide easily. If it doesn't, go for another size larger. These are fine. Clearly mark which one's the top and the bottom, because if it's switched the other direction, they're not going to fit right. Or you might think they're correct, but they don't lay flat on your table. So I'm just putting a B for bottom here and arrow the direction that they go. Now you're ready to assemble. So you need a washer on each end where the head is for each bolt. feed it through on both sides. Add the washer so that it goes up against the wood piece on each one, and then you put your nut on. And that is all there is to it. Here I have clamped my small piece that I'm going to be using on the scroll saw. You'll want to do the final tightening with a 1/4 inch wrench so that the piece is nice and secure and won't move on you. And then on the bottom, it's very flat. The final tip that I would recommend is that you smooth over the ends so there are no points, because obviously you're going to be handling this on the scroll saw and you don't want it to catch on you. So I'm just going to round over the edges just a little bit on the top. So I hope you'll make one of your own, and boy, they really do come in handy. So thanks for watching and happy scrolling.